Welcome back. So in this episode we're going to get this one painted up and get the weathering done. So following on from my Matilda video that we did about painting MRP, I've painted this one with Mr. Colour 70 as a base coat and then used the MRP 4BO. So something that's obviously quite interesting with this vehicle, or that the way that we've posed it, is to have the tracks running along the side fender there. So for that we need to put the straps through, which is why we put those little bits of etch on earlier. So I'm just using some Tamiya tape here, which I've cut on an Infini, I think AK have got it now, on the boards with lines where you follow the lines with a blade. So you've got different sizes. This is, I think, 1 mil width, which is the widest. It goes all the way down to 0.2 mil, I think. So just thread those through. It's not easy work, but you know, it's done. In the end, it's okay. If you were being perfectionist, there should be a sort of buckle on there, but you know, we don't need to worry about that. And now you can sort of see how we're going to pose the vehicle. Just putting the turret on with the machine gun fixed in, which is at an odd angle, which gives it a really strange look. And we've got the grille going on as well, just to show you, just placing it, just to give you an idea that everything's kind of going to look, you know, just how we want it to look. I have put the lights on here, painted them silver. I didn't like the covers. I didn't like the frames, the clear parts that come with that you glue on front. So I thought, well, we'll just whip them off. Technically, I think that what I've cut there, I've kind of cut it and drilled it as if a light gets screwed into it. There you can see, it's just a bit heavy on the framing. So I've just drilled a hole as if it was where it was screwed in. Not worrying too much about it. Track wash going on now. Enamel washes from Ammo. I've been using these quite a lot recently. And this isn't because they're better than oils, or you get better results or anything like that. It's literally because I'm trying to get through quite a few. It's ease, you know, grabbing something this is for green, this is for tracks, this is for dark corners, this is a panel line wash. It just makes life easy. And for these builds, I'm not trying to sort of redefine a technique or anything like that. We're just trying to get through the build in a reasonably good way. So therefore, I've chosen to use these enamel washes because they are very convenient. As you can see, dark brown wash for green vehicles. And it literally is what it says. So we go around all of the recessed and raised detail. And again, just following on from the previous videos where I said that you often see people doing this, you don't really get the idea of what you're meant to do afterwards. The idea is to put this on, let it dry around the raised or recessed areas, then you want to wipe it off. So it just leaves a residue. That's when it looks the best, in my opinion. And you make life easier by using a thinner brush and not putting too much on in the first place, and you don't have to get so much off. If you did a wash all over it, you could get the same effect, but you would then get a filter, so it would change the tone of the green. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to put on a very sharp pin wash. There you can see on the turret, it's a bit heavy in places where it was starting to become a bit of a struggle to get it on. And there we are on the back of the hole as well. And now we're just going to go ahead and, using some neat thinners, just try and move this around to where we want it to be. And that is the technique. It's trying to manipulate it and move it, not necessarily wipe it off. Just make it pull up tighter around the raised detail or wash into recessed panel lines. Less is more with this technique. And you need to let it dry, and you can sort of try and wipe it away as well. And as we're nearing the end of this portion, you just see I'm using a cotton bud there, just to try and wick some of it away where I feel it's starting to stain the green. As that dries off, you'll find that it will just leave a nice effect. So there we go, weathered up the running gear, nice and easy. I think you can follow that easy enough just by looking at that. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some dried pigment mud effects. I could end the video here and leave you all guessing, but obviously what I've actually done here is what I always do, is to do one side completely, so I kind of learn the process myself, and then as we flip it around you'll find that it's totally clear and there's nothing been done on the other side, and that is when we will start to build it up following the process of what I've done. There you can see one of the wheels actually fell off, but it's no bother, it's fine. I actually made it easier to weather. Getting some of the dust and pigments down inside and trying to control where the dried pigments end up to. That's what I'm trying to do with this. Show you the control. Now you can see I think it's quite good. It did dawn on me that as I've done all of this tank is depicting one that's had the tracks taken off, so it's running on a road. However, let's just say it's just come out of a field, took the tracks off, now it's running on a road. So straight off we've got this unobtainable Wilder product, which isn't very helpful for you. But good news is these are more or less the same. The Wilder one is water-based, these are enamel-based, that's the only difference. You just can't use water with the ammo ones. So I thought I'd point that out just so you can see that these two would do the same thing here, in my opinion. Now there might be a bit more depth to the products once you get into the minutiae of it, but for what we're doing, putting on a base of textured earth, this would do that. Ammo also have a textured earth range as well, I believe, and so do Vallejo. That's got actual bits in it. The Wilder products, somewhere in between those two. It'd probably be better not to have all of those bits and gritty bits, because you can build that up with the pigments. But there you see it going on. It's quite a thick kind of paste. And the idea is just to cleanly get that on behind the wheels. Not worry about getting it too many places because you can always wipe it off. And then we're going to go in with our own little pigment wash. So we've got neat thinners, just getting a load of pigments from the ammo range. Doesn't really matter what they are, you know, pick your colours for what you want. I think this is some winter soil and then there's some dried earth goes into it. And I just get that into the pigment and make a kind of pigment wash and then dab that in like this. I'm using quite a thick brush. And going on in and around, it looks as though we're kind of just slapping it on, which I suppose we are in one sense, but we're also doing it in a kind of planned way. It's going in behind the wheels, it's not going right up to the fender necessarily. Some of it may do along the back. We're not just plastering it on here, there and everywhere. We're trying to be clean with the application. Once that's on behind the wheels, we just put a little bit around the inside rims of the wheels, and that just gives us a bit of depth and gets that starting to kind of work in there. And this all just gives us a layer for the next processes to bite into. Now I've sped up the process, really when you're putting it on as thick as this with thinners. You'd probably have to wait overnight, but I do speed the process up with a hairdryer. We had some quite sunny days, so I leave the model in the sun. It's the quickest way to warm it up, but you've got to be careful of the amount of heat you're applying. Don't leave it in the sun for the scorching hot sun all day. Maybe an hour or two, turn it around sort of thing. Hairdryer, lower heats if you're going to use that. Now what we've got here is some wet thinners and we've got some dry pigments. And I'm just dabbing them off the brush into the wet areas. And you can see when it soaks it up, because it goes from the colour, this goes as a light brown, and then it goes to a sort of black colour. And if you see it still dry there, and that's where you want some pigments, you just go on in, look, with some extra thinners. And once it's like that, don't touch it. At least not for this moment. You want to let that dry off, and you'll start to see the colour come back through it in the end, once it's done that. So once that's sorted, we're going to go in now with these rain marks from enamel. Sorry, they are enamel. And you can also see how the pigments will dry off. As you can see, you've got quite a good 3D effect. You know, there's texture there. Now, on the other side, when I applied the rain marks, this wasn't as dry as this, and they actually worked a lot better. So maybe as it starts to dry off, that's when you want to try and incorporate some of these washes that I'm about to do. But just test it out, you know, don't be too precious about it. See how you go. Now, rain marks is obviously is going to be streaks and runs. So we want to be putting these in areas where we're going to get streaks and runs. I'm thinking sort of down the back of the side fenders there. Or from water splashing up from the underside of the fender and running down the back as well. And as you can see, we just, with some thinners, sort of damp brush, we just streak that down. Now obviously we're going into the dried pigments, and like I said, it's starting to kind of, it's moving them that we don't want and mixing them together. So it's better if it's actually all a bit wetter, as you can see. So I've left you this because now the pigments have got mixed in and it's starting to do something that we didn't really want. So when we get into the next bit here, we can see that I'm adding a bit of thinner in there now and trying to wet it up a little bit and move it and manipulate it a bit more, and that starts to give us a bit more of a more workable effect, I suppose. Now we're up to the front here, and we've got a few fuel stains that we're going to put on. So these are for kind of grease effects from the bolts, from any moving parts, any greased parts, it always leaks out. So we're going to add that on, and that's just by letting that pool around. Always important to remember that it can leak at any time, so it can always, the wheel can be at any kind of direction, so that you can get sideways streaks if you think of it like that. Now we're starting to get quite a bit happening here, and that's what we want. Just keep applying layers. So all I'm doing really is going back and forth with the different washes. So you've seen the pigments applied, then we use some darker washes through the rain marks. So I start actually getting a pool of thinners where I keep washing out the brush, and that starts to get a number of colours in it. It gets the rain marks in it, gets the dark wash for the green, all of this, that and everything else, and it all adds to it's just another layer to put on there. So as you can see, we're starting to build up a number of colours as it dries off, and you will see that because we've also got the pigments there working with that lighter rain marks enamel wash. So that's changed the pigments again and made them lighter, and then we've got them working with some of the darker pigments as well, and all in all it gives a reasonably effective dried on mud look, only for a certain context really, but it looks pretty good. And then you could use this, see, you could use parts of this as you go forward. You could use it on the back of engine decks, and have stuff like in a bombed out city with stuff blowing over the top of it, that sort of thing. You can use wetter effects as well. And then one of the final things is actually really effective, and I'll actually go too much very quickly, is just knocking back some of this. You only have to tap it, and you'll see there, it just blows off, and it gives a really natural effect. Perhaps not so much there, that's a bit too much I've taken off. But as I go back through here, it's easy enough to do. You just put a bit of thinner on if you want to, by the way, and you can just dab some more dry pigment in there. As you can see, I'm trying to knock it off, and then it's almost going the wrong way. But as you go back through, just tapping it here and there, and then blowing it away, it leaves these really nice swaths of like a bit's been knocked off, or a bit is not so much heavy in mud, as it were. As you can see there, I want to just add a bit more. So it's easy, just wet it, drop in the pigments. Now you can use Pigment Fixer. I haven't here, I'm just using the enamel wash. I don't know the differences behind it, to be honest. So there we go. That shows the effect. Following that should get you somewhere near here, and then it's over to you to take that on to the next level. This model could have gone a lot further with it up on the upper hole, but again, it's to show you mud effects. This was, so you know, I'm happy with where we are with this. So as always, hopefully that was of interest to you, and it continues our build series, which is a playlist for beginners guide to armor building. So if you want to check that out, this video is part of that playlist, so have a look through there. There's loads of videos on there following through. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you like what you see, let me know down in the comments below any thoughts, any views, whether you're actually trying some of these techniques, if they're helpful. If you haven't already, give the video a like. I'll see you in the next video.